It was Monday morning, and the courtyard of Riverside High looked like a battlefield. Milk cartons, plastic bags, napkins, and bits of trash were scattered across the cracked tiles like confetti after a storm. And just like that, they blamed the 81-year-old janitor. No one asked why. No one checked the cameras. No one cared what had happened. At 6:45 a.m., Vice Principal Lawrence turned in through the side gate, coffee still steaming in his hand. The sight stopped him in his tracks. He frowned and muttered, "Not this again," before turning sharply toward the security office, where a dim yellow light glowed through a small window. Inside sat Walter Hayes, 81 years old, glasses perched low on his nose, and his thin hand trembled slightly as he wrote in the duty log. But his pen strokes were steady like muscle memory from years of military discipline. Next to him sat a faded thermos of tea and an old cassette player softly playing instrumental music. "Mr. Hayes," the vice principal barked through the wooden door. "Can you explain why the courtyard looks like a landfill?" Walter looked up, blinking behind his glasses. He set the pen down, stood slowly, straightened his back out of habit, and walked outside. He scanned the mess. "There were strong winds last night, sir," he said calmly. "I started sweeping around 5, but the wind kept blowing things back." "Oh, really?" the vice principal snapped. So the trash just flew itself into the busiest part of campus. He didn't wait for a response. "I got an email from a parent this morning, video attached. They saw you just standing there, not even trying to clean. You want the students to wade through garbage to get to class." Walter paused. One hand rested on the desk for balance. But he didn't argue, didn't defend himself. He simply nodded, quietly walked to the supply closet, and returned with the large push broom. Just then, the students of Class 11A were arriving. One girl pointed at the courtyard and whispered to her friend, "Wait, he still works here. Seriously, what's the point of hiring someone that's slow?" They giggled, not loud, but loud enough. On the second floor, a senior boy raised his phone and hit record. His camera caught the old man hunched forward, broom in hand, squinting in the morning light. His shadow stretched long across the tile. The video went online minutes later, captioned "Happy Monday" featuring the slowest trash sweep of the century. An hour later, it had over 400 likes and dozens of comments. Did our school hire this guy during Lincoln's presidency? Just replace him with a robot already. The laughter only grew louder from there. And him, the man they were talking about, kept sweeping, not fast, not slow. His broom moved in clean, practiced strokes, each one as precise and purposeful, but no one cared about the technique. All they saw was an old man hunched over, hands trembling, and a courtyard that still looked dirty. Alumni passing by the school looked at him and blurted out, "Wait, he's still alive." The words slipped out in the middle of a laugh, and he heard every syllable. Walter didn't react. He kept his head down, working, hands gripping the broom, but in his mind, he wasn't thinking about the insults. He was thinking about wind direction, whether he should sweep with it or against it, to keep the trash from blowing back. He didn't know how far the video had spread, didn't know some of the younger teachers had started shaking their heads in the break room, whispering things like, maybe it's time the school brought in someone younger. He only knew one thing for sure. At 7:15, the students would begin lining up for class, and he needed to have that walkway clear before they came through. His full name was Walter Samuel Hayes. Born in 1943 in a small town with one gas station, one church, and a hillside cemetery. His childhood was shaped in the silence of a post-war world where keeping your head down wasn't just a habit, it was survival. At 18, he joined the military, not for glory, but in his own words, "It was the only thing that made my father hold his head up around the neighbors." Soon after, he was placed in strategic logistics, then transferred to a special unit that led humanitarian convoys into conflict zones, a job you'd never see on the evening news, but one that appeared in every classified report. Walter Hayes had once survived a cholera outbreak in Sudan. He had led a relief team through a forest in Haiti during an armed standoff. And he was the last man to leave a refugee camp on the border of Pakistan after cradling the body of an orphan child for 10 straight hours. waiting for a forensic team to confirm the child deserved to be buried under his real name. He didn't bring medals home. Well, he had some, but he left them behind in a wooden box at the forward outpost, a place no one ever returned to. When Walter retired from service, he turned down every offer to become a government advisor or work for international organizations. Instead, he moved back to his hometown and applied for a school security job. His application had just one handwritten reason. "I'm not good at speeches. I don't do crowds. But if a child drops their notebook, I'll be the first one to pick it up. And if a student no longer feels safe inside the school grounds, I'll be the last one to leave the gate." No one at the school knew his past. No one asked. And he never told. To them, he was just the old man sitting quietly in the security booth every afternoon, eating cold rice with sesame salt and listening to AM radio through a worn-out foam earpiece. They didn't see the hands that once carried half a ton of relief supplies up a mountain, barebacked. They didn't see the left arm broken 3 times, still lifting a motherless boy through the mud across a border. Someone once asked, half joking, "Why don't you just rest? You're 81. What's left to prove?" He smiled, soft as the wind, and said, "I'm old, yes, but I can still work. Sitting around makes me feel like a tree waiting to rot." Maybe not everyone works because they need money. Some like him work because they're not ready to let go of life. They work to feel useful, to stay part of a world still spinning. Old age didn't make him weaker. It just made others believe he should stop. But he didn't. He lived quietly, resiliently, and with quiet dignity. After the morning trash storm and the video going viral, the atmosphere at school changed, but not in the way Walter Hayes might have hoped. If before, he was the old guard guy people passed by without a greeting, now he became the punchline of the cruelest jokes in the gym, the cafeteria, and the class group chats. During recess, a senior boy passed him while he was cleaning near the music room entrance. The boy stepped lightly over the trash pile and sniffed the air, then muttered, "Ugh, something smells weird around here. Or is it just me?" Laughter followed. Another whispered, "Bet he stocked food supplies, not led troops. Probably held more broomsticks than rifles." No one stepped in, no one said stop. Walter didn't look at them, didn't say a word. He just tightened his grip on the broomstick just slightly and kept sweeping. The breaking point came one rainy afternoon. The wind cut across the courtyard, scattering trash from the bins like dry leaves. Walter was struggling to pull a garbage bag into the storage shed when he tripped over a loose brick. His hand slipped from the strap, and his keyring fell onto the wet cement. A student walked by, tall, polished, shirt tucked in. He glanced down, then stepped forward, bent slightly. Walter paused, surprised. For the first time in weeks, someone actually offered help. But just as Walter opened his mouth to say thank you, the boy pulled his hand back, tossed the keys into Walter's chest, and smirked. "No worries. Hang in there, what's left. Right? Almost done with life anyway." Then turned and walked off. High-fived his friend like he'd just dropped the punchline of the week. Walter gripped the keys tightly in his hand. Raindrops slid down his ears, soaking into the collar of his shirt. But he didn't wipe them away, didn't bow his head. He stood up and walked slowly back toward the shed. That night, a new video appeared on the school's internal social feed. Shot from the third-floor hallway, Walter was doing push-ups alone in the guard booth on the cold tile floor, under dim yellow lights. His movements were slow, his back trembled, but each rep was steady, intentional. The caption read, "Grandpa 2.0 Mission. Become an 81-year-old super soldier." The comments flooded in tears of laughter emojis, mocking lines like, "Who taught him that? Form, careful, or he's gonna break a hip." No one asked, why was an 81-year-old man still training? No one thought, maybe he was trying to keep his knees from locking. Maybe he was holding on to stamina because he refused to let himself grow weak. While he still had a job to do, it was early Saturday morning. Walter had just unlocked the main gate when he noticed it, a black trash bag left right on the front steps. No cameras had caught who placed it there. No note, no message, just silence. He stared at it for a long moment, then murmured, "Some kids still know better." He walked over, tied the bag tighter, lifted it onto his push cart and carried on, just like any other day. But the following Thursday was no ordinary day. It marked a turning point no one at Riverside High School saw coming. A banner stretched across the main gate. "Welcome delegates from the United Nations Office of Education." Students were told to dress properly, line up neatly, and wave politely. The principal, the teachers, even the interns. Everyone was there early. Word had it that high-level representatives were coming to observe the school's model of humanity in education, something the administration was very eager to showcase. Walter showed up too. Same faded cap, same buttoned-up guard uniform, same quiet duties opening the gate, sweeping leaves by the fence, taking out the trash. The only difference was in his eyes. They looked just a little more sunken that morning. Maybe he hadn't slept again. Or maybe that video of him doing push-ups was still being passed around. Then a sleek black SUV with diplomatic plates rolled slowly into the courtyard. Students stood at attention. Teachers straightened their coats. The door opened. A tall man stepped out, middle-aged, dark suit, United Nations pin on his chest. Behind him, 2 assistants, a female interpreter, and a cameraman. He shook hands with the principal, exchanged a few words in English, nodded politely, and began walking the front corridor, greeting students as cameras rolled. But as the delegation passed the gym, the man stopped. Just stopped. His eyes drifted toward the far wall behind the field, where an old man, slightly hunched, was dragging a heavy trash bag toward the collection truck. The man's eyes locked onto him, not with anger, but like a memory had just hit him all at once, vivid and undeniable. He didn't wait for the translator, didn't care for the schedule. The UN delegate broke away from the group and walked briskly toward Walter. The principal and the rest of the entourage followed, confused, scrambling to catch up. When he was only a few steps away, the man spoke, his voice low, trembling. "Mr. Hayes, is it really?" Walter Hayes. Walter gently set down the trash bag, straightened up, blinked once. A few seconds later, the man rushed forward and embraced him tightly, desperately, like a child who had finally found home again. The entire courtyard froze. "You're alive! You're actually alive!" the man whispered in English, tears welling in his eyes. "You saved my family? Mogadishu? 2005. My father, my mother, my little sister, all of us." The principal stood in stunned silence. Students in the back started murmuring. A few reached for their phones, but no one laughed. No one dared speak. The man, now composed, turned to the principal and said clearly, "For all to hear, this is not just a school janitor." He gestured toward Walter, his voice steady. "This is Special Commander Walter Hayes, a former head of the UN Emergency Response Task Force. A man who saved thousands of lives across more than 20 conflict zones." He paused. "And he saved mine when I was just 11 years old at a refugee camp in Somalia. He carried me on his back through gunfire for 7 kilometers, because I had a fever and needed medicine." No one said a word, just the rustling of wind, and the sun breaking gently over Walter's shoulders, the same man they'd called the walking mummy just days before. A few moments later, one of the aides stepped forward, opening a briefcase and pulling out a thick envelope sealed in red wax, bearing the official international insignia. On the front, it read, "To Mr. Walter S. Hayes, with honor, a personal letter from the Secretary General of the United Nations." That ceremony, which was originally just a routine diplomatic visit, turned into a moment no one had planned for, and no one in that school would ever forget for the rest of their lives. After the emotional embrace between Mr. Walter and the United Nations representative, the air over the entire courtyard felt like it was being held in place by an invisible thread, tight, tense, so heavy that silence became the only language anyone could understand. The principal, who had previously dismissed Walter coldly after the video of him went viral, was now standing just a few steps away, his hand placed over his chest, eyes unsettled. He walked forward and bowed his head slightly, something no one had ever seen him do for a security guard. I'm truly sorry. Mr. Hayes, he said, on behalf of the school, on behalf of all of us for what we failed to see, and for what we never even thought to ask. Walter simply nodded, no blame, no bitterness, because he had never asked for an apology. But when it came, he accepted it like a soldier who'd learned to survive without expecting anyone to stand up for him. That afternoon, the faculty held an emergency meeting. Within just 24 hours, an internal announcement was sent to the entire school. Starting next semester, Mr. Walter Hayes will be a special guest speaker leading the new seminar, Civic Values and Quiet Responsibility for all senior students. Students were instructed to register for his session, but they didn't need much prompting. The sign-up list was full within the first 30 minutes. In his first talk, Walter didn't use slides. There was no microphone. He simply sat at the edge of the platform, holding a pen with a broken cap, and shared a small story about a child who got separated from his mother in a refugee camp, about a night of rain without medicine, and about why he never lets trash sit overnight, because if someone steps on it the next day, they might not get back up. And if I know that, but still walk away, then I don't deserve to wear this uniform, no matter how faded it is. No one blinked for the full 45 minutes. A week later, a small brass plaque was installed next to the back gate security post, the very spot where Mr. Walter had once been ignored every morning, where trash bags had been left at his feet, where whispers and mockery once followed his every step. On that plaque was a single line proposed by the students themselves: Walter Hayes, keeper of the grounds, and of the human spirit. From that day forward, every morning, as Mr. Walter walked across the courtyard, students would pause not because they were told to, but because they truly respected him, a living witness to history, and the video that once mocked him doing push-ups, it no longer existed. In its place, a new video now circled among the student body captured during the ceremony as Mr. Walter stood at the podium and spoke his closing words. Sometimes, silence is the most powerful form of service. But that doesn't mean we are allowed to forget. If this story made you pause for even a moment, share it. Not to honor one man, but to remind ourselves that respect doesn't come from rank, age, or uniform. It begins with how we look at another person, before we even know their name. Respect them the way we wish to be respected ourselves. If you found this story meaningful, share it with someone you care about, and don't forget to subscribe for the next story.